Clem Picasso. Yeah, that's who I am. Picasso.
Picasso, haven't I heard your name someplace?
Sure you have. Clem Picasso, the painter. I paint flagpoles.
That's where it was. You were painting a portrait of a flagpole for Dane, is that it?
Nah, you don't understand. I'm the real article. Let me tell you about me.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for me, you guys wouldn't even know Dane was dead.
Tell me more about yourself.
Well, I was painting a flagpole on top of this building, see? All of a sudden came a gust of wind. I grab hold the pole, drop my pail of paint right through that skylight there, see? I look for spilled paint. I find a dead man. That is the experience that happened today to Clem Picasso, flagpole painter. Unforgettable.
It'll live in my memory, too. You got anything to add to that, Doc?
Only this, Danny. This room is a fortress. Dane must have built it on top of his penthouse for a retreat. It's ventilated by an air conditioning system. The only source of outside light is that skylight, and that's at least 30 feet from the floor.
Mm-hmm.
There's no phone, and the room was locked and bolted from the outside. Dane couldn't get out. This place is bare. No writing materials, nothing.
Yeah, like a tomb. Maybe he needed this kind of atmosphere to think.
Maybe. All the boys found when they broke in here was Dane and that table, loaded with food, all jarred. Fruits, chicken, all sorts of good things to eat.
What's the matter, Doc? You hungry? Just tell me how Dane died.
He died of starvation, Danny.
Huh?
Yeah, all that food, and he died of starvation. Curious man, this Val Dane. Huh, Danny?
I could have dropped it right there. Val Dane, I told myself, had committed suicide by starving himself to death, thereby obtaining new material for his next novel. That's what I told myself. That's how much sense it made. And that's why I couldn't drop it. In New York, hardly anybody dies in a vacuum. A man as famous as Val Dane never does. There has to be a close friend or relative to break the news to, and in a case like this, to question. It wasn't tough to find out that Val Dane had a wife, now divorced, and a city directory said she lived on West 79th Street. It was apartment 105. As simple as that.
Yes, what is it?
You're Mrs. Dane?
Well, only approximately. Mr. Dane and I are divorced. I've kept his name for my son's sake. You're...
Danny Clover. I'm from the police.
Oh, how interesting. We've never had a caller here from the police. Won't you come in?
Thank you.
I do hope you'll stay until Jimmy comes home. Jimmy is my son, Mr. Clover. I'm sure he'd love to hear the experiences you'd have to tell him. In here, the living room.
That's quite a collection of glass toys there on the floor. Clowns, building sets, animals, and all in glass. Jimmy must be an unusual boy.
Oh, yes, he is. That's all I have left in life, Mr. Clover. To make him happy.
There's something I have to tell you that might make you quite sad.
About Jimmy?
No, it's about your former husband, Val Dane. He's dead.
Oh, I'm so happy. Well, I mean, I'm relieved. I was afraid with Jimmy being on the streets...
Then it doesn't affect you, Mr. Dane's death?
I think I should be more sad if I read in the papers that a man I never met had died at the age of 93.
I see.
No, you don't, really. How could I feel sorrow for Val Dane? He was a miserable 10 years thrust into my life.
Why do you say that?
Because he was a talented egoist. He cared nothing for Jimmy. Cared even less for me. We lived for him. He lived for Val Dane.
When did you see him last?
2 years ago. In that horrible cabin in the Adirondacks. He forced us to go there so he could write. And one more thing, Mr. Clover.
Yes?
When you write your report about me, put this down. Put down Joanne Dane, Val Dane's ex-wife. She's glad he's dead.
I didn't bother to tell Joanne Dane that her former husband had starved to death. I had a feeling she would have enjoyed that too much, and death doesn't need laughing at. But when I hit Broadway again, death was screaming at me in big black letters. Val Dane had become public property for a nickel a copy. You got the funny papers, too. I called headquarters and asked Sergeant Tartaglia if anything new had turned up. Something new had. Get back to your office right away, the sergeant said. There's a guy who wants to see you. He's hysterical. The sergeant wasn't kidding. Something in my office makes you laugh like that? The pollen, maybe?
I can't help it. It's rich. It's the richest one I've ever heard.
Okay, come out of it. Who are you?
My name's Brooks, Lyle Brooks.
Lyle Brooks, huh? Tell me gently, what's so rich?
Oh, if I think of it again, Lieutenant, I shall roll on your floor in continued convulsions of hilarity.
And think of something real sad, like a right to the jaw, and tell me what's on your mind.
Why, Valdane starved to death. Don't you think that's funny? No? Well, I think it's funny.
What tickles you about a man's death, Brooks?
About Val's death? He was such a pig, and he starved to death. Well, that lieutenant is humor. Category ironic humor.
What's your interest in Valdane's death?
I'm his ghost.
Ghost, huh? Battaglia,
Yeah, Danny. Now, what do you want?
book this guy for impersonating a human.
Hey, that's a serious...
Right
Huh?
now, Battaglia, book him.
Well, sure. For impersonating a human, huh? Come on, you.
Policemen have a sense of jest, too, I see.
Come on, you.
So I'll explain. I am Valdane's ghost.
You're doing it again, Brooks.
His ghost writer. I did much of the writing which is credited to our so literary Mr. Dane. That's why I came to give myself up.
To give yourself up, huh? Did you have anything to do with his dying?
Assuredly not. But you might think so. I hated him. Valdane cheated me time and again. But this time was the biggest cheat of all.
What's he talking about, Danny?
I'm talking about The Great Fake, Valdane's latest book. I wrote at least half of it, you know. Got no credit. Val said I would get credit.
What are you trying to tell us?
Just this. If Valdane met with foul play in any way, I should head your list of suspects. Me and Cynthia, of course. We mustn't forget Cynthia.
Oh, we can't forget her. Cynthia who?
Cynthia Troy. Why, everybody knows she's the woman in The Great Fake. Heavens. Do you mean to say you haven't read the book, Mr. Clover?
Mr. Clover hadn't, but Mr. Clover did. The Great Fake, new novel by Valdane, available at your favorite bookstore, $3 the copy. I bought it, noted it carefully on my expense account, and went home and curled up with $3 worth of vitriol. Because that's what the novel was. A book of hate, a sneering book, a book without humor. There wasn't a person in it, only caricatures dipped in acid. And the leading woman of the novel had been dipped deepest of all. It tweaked me. The next morning, I just had to see her.
I'd been expecting a call from the police, Mr. Clover. Drink?
No thanks, Miss Troy.
Then you won't mind if I do.
No.
I realize it's before noon, but then I haven't had my breakfast yet. You sure you won't have a drink?
Yeah, I'm sure. Just why had you been expecting a call from the police, Miss Troy?
Because I have no doubt about your intelligence. One thing you must know in my business is never to underestimate anybody.
You mind if I ask what your business is?
The same as in Val's novel. I give parties, Mr. Clover. I arrange that the unfortunate rich be impressed by their leisure and their wealth, by opulent and clever parties, Mr. Clover, for an opulent price, Mr. Clover.
Now the question, Miss Troy. Why
Why were you expected, Mr. Clover? The answer is a question. How do you get a man to starve to death?
I've been asking myself that. You think somebody got Valdane to starve?
Undoubtedly. Valdane was a man whose only love was Valdane. He was too jealous of his love to kill himself. He would never commit suicide.
Then you think he was murdered?
I believe I implied that, don't you?
Did you kill him?
The idea titillates me. Yes, it's a rare thought. Ask me that again, Mr. Clover.
Look, Miss Troy, the social graces aren't one of my, social graces. In your circle, how do you tell a lady to quit stalling?
By telling her.
Then let's quit stalling, huh?
Very well. You've read Val's novel, yes? It made a fool of me, didn't it?
Is that why you killed him? Locked him in that room and starved him to death?
I should like to have done that, Mr. Clover. The idea...
Yeah, I know. It titillates you.
You've started a train of thought, Mr. Clover. I should like to have locked him in that room and spent days of ecstatic joy watching Valdane starve.
I went back to the clean, almost domestic air of the police laboratory and waited while the lab boys checked and rechecked the coroner's report. No matter how you shook it, it came out that Valdane had died of starvation. Then it caught up with me what Cynthia Troy had said. It would have given her days of ecstatic joy to watch Dane starve. There was only one place anyone could have done that. That was from the roof and through the skylight of Dane's death room. I took a uniformed officer with me because maybe that kind of ecstasy leaves a clue.
Danny, I've been over every inch of this roof. There ain't a particle of it that ain't intimate and familiar to me. I'm also sick of the sight of it under my nose.
Okay, officer. You can get up off your hands and knees now.
Thanks, Danny. You know, Danny, maybe it'd help if you told me what it is we're looking for.
I don't know. Thread of cloth, a cigarette butt, the smell of hate.
The smell... Huh? Hey, Danny, you dizzy from the altitude or something?
No. You can go now, officer. I won't need you anymore.
Okay. Hey, you know, it's kind of pretty up here.
Huh.
All the lights of the city. Gee, that reminds me. I think I'll take my wife to the top of the Empire State Building. It'll be like a second honeymoon. Well, so long, Danny. Don't stay too long in the night air.
Yeah. There has to be something. Something. Didn't make sense what I saw. A piece of Scotch tape stuck to one of the panes of the skylight. I leaned down to examine it. And then there was something that did make sense. The sound of someone moving toward me. And then I whipped out my gun and ducked behind the jut of the skylight. And then it found me. When I woke, a sickly dawn spread itself over the roof and over me. I took inventory and found I was missing 2 items. A valuable hunk of skin from my right temple and a piece of Scotch tape. Just that. Scotch tape.
You are listening to Broadway's My Beat with Larry Thor as Detective Danny Clover. A thrill a minute. High-tension suspense from the word go. Dramatic excitement that builds and builds until it explodes in a smashing climax. That's Inner Sanctum, the great mystery show that's another of CBS top-notch Monday night programs. You'll find Inner Sanctum one of the most entertaining spots on your Monday night listening schedule. And remember, Lux Radio Theater returns next Monday, August 29th, for its 15th year of great dramatic presentations. Inner Sanctum, Lux Radio Theater, every Monday night over most of these same CBS stations. Now back to Broadway's My Beat.
Morning on Broadway is like any other August morning on 1,000 other main drags. People are caught up in a salary to be earned, baseball scores, and the heat. You keep moving and do the best you can. The best I could do was to try to push my way through a brick wall. Progress was practically at a standstill. But by now, one thing was obvious. I had a murder on my hands. Val Dane had been found starved to death in a locked room with a banquet spread before him. That in itself was something to nick the curiosity. But when I got too curious, somebody had taken a shot at me. Draw a line and add that up, and you get a 6-letter word meaning foul play. At headquarters, after I had my head bandaged, Sergeant Tartaglia was terse and intelligent about the whole thing.
I can't figure it, Danny.
Now, don't try, Tartaglia. If you could figure it, you'd become invaluable to the department. You'd never get your pension. Did you get what I told you to?
Yeah, 1 piece of frosted glass, just like you said.
Thanks. Where'd you get it?
Now, Danny, where would you get a piece of frosted glass at police headquarters? Out of the men's powder room. You better hurry up with it.
Yeah. Well, we'll tear off a piece of Scotch tape. Well, we'll paste it over the glass like this.
What are you doing, Danny?
Pasting Scotch tape on frosted glass. It's the latest craze. Now we hold it up to the light. Look through it, Tartaglia. Get up close and look through it.
Hey, you can see right through it. The part of the glass with the Scotch tape on it, you can see right through. Hey, that's a neat trick, Danny.
It's also a clue, Sergeant. The skylight to Val Dane's retreat was frosted glass. Somebody stuck that missing piece of tape on the glass so they could watch Val Dane die.
Uh-huh.
Tartaglia, suppose you were locked in a room loaded with food and you were starving to death. What would you do?
I'd eat the food.
Unless what, Tartaglia?
Unless nothing, Danny, I'd eat the food.
Unless what, Tartaglia?
Danny, I said I'd eat the food unless it was poison, Danny.
You're so right. Tartaglia, I want all the food found in Valdane's room transferred to the technical lab right away. I want every piece of it analyzed for poison. I want the analysis on my desk as soon as possible.
Right.
Now, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Danny Clover speaking.
Plainclothes Meshikov, sir, assigned to follow Cynthia Troy.
Oh, okay, Meshikov, what do you got?
At 9 a.m. this morning, Cynthia Troy entered the Fifth Avenue apartment of one Michael Green.
Who?